Good morning. Welcome to Brittney on the Bluff, brought to you each weekday by Whitworth's Gift Chest Jewelers, Key Drugs, First Community Bank, and today's Computers in Poplar Bluff. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to be talking about Missouri's roads, some road projects, road-related issues, that sort of thing. Dave Wyman with the Missouri Department of Transportation in the studio with us this morning. How are you doing, Dave?
Oh, doing real well.
Always enjoy our visits because you let me know where I need to avoid driving to miss all the road construction and that kind of thing. And of course, we'll talk about some construction updates a little bit later. But, it's here we are in October. The Farmer's Almanac is saying we're going to have another rough winter this year. And whenever I think rough winter, I think MoDOT.
Yeah, it's funny this time of year because you hear so many different people with so many different things. And,
predictions.
And you've got the spoons and the persimmons, and you've got the
woolly worms.
The woolly worms and the wasp nests up high in the tree, and you've got the number of foggy days in August, and I mean it's just one thing after another that kind of leaves people, and we really don't know. I mean, we don't know what's in the future, but we just got to kind of be prepared for what could happen. Certainly, last winter was pretty tough on us,
and the Farmer's Almanac got it right last year, so I'm giving them a little more credit this year.
You can't argue with the Farmer's Almanac. They do get quite a few things right. So,
they do. I don't know how, but they do.
My mom was a fervent believer of reading the Farmer's Almanac. She really liked that. And she seemed like she was in tune with a lot of the other things, too. I should have written down more of her little superstitions because she always had some little thing that she was talking about, that would affect the weather. But, certainly MoDOT, we know that last year was bad, and so we've got to be prepared. And, I've said this before, but we've got a large system. I think our current total for the miles in our state system is 33,891. That's huge. That's more than Illinois and Kansas combined.
Wow.
More than Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas combined. So, our state is very transportation heavy, and it's a lot to take care of. So
it sure is.
It's a big undertaking.
Well, I know last year, because we had so much more snow than what we normally have and more ice and that kind of a thing, you all went through a lot more salt than you normally would do in a year.
You bet.
Have we got stockpiles enough that if we have another rough winter like that again this year, that we'll have that?
Well, we've got, of course, you never really know going in, but we have tried to make some adjustments where we can. One of the things that really was a good rule of thumb going in and talking about salt to folks was that in all the previous years, 1 ton of asphalt, which is what we use to patch up roads and everything else, 1 ton of asphalt is about $60 a ton. And 1 ton of salt has always been, for the last several years, about $60 a ton.
Right.
So it was a really good comparison. You could go in and you could talk to groups of folks and say, we could do a really, really awesome job of keeping all of the salt or all of the ice and snow off of your road. But that's going to be less money that we can spend on asphalt to make it smooth during the summer and spring and fall. And so people, it was a really good comparison, one for one. Well, now, with the winter that we had last winter and more entities are buying salt than we've ever known before. The state of Arkansas is buying some salt now. A lot of cities and municipalities are buying salt that may not have ever bought salt before. I know I talked with the city of Sikeston this past week. They are going to start trying to do some of the salt brine, which we have done for several years. So those folks that generally have not been in the game are now playing in the game. And
so let me guess, it's forced the price up.
Certainly.
That's what happens.
I mean, when demand goes up, supply goes down, and so the price per ton has gone up.
How much?
Well, on average, and again, you look at averages, it's gone up about $20 a ton for us.
Wow.
So we're paying about $80 a ton. But that is, kind of tied with that is the transportation factor of that. And so in our district, which we've talked about before, it's huge. It goes all the way over to Wright, Ozark, and Douglas counties. That's about 30 minutes before you get to Springfield if you're going across on Highway 60. So if you consider, a trip from the Mississippi River all the way to Ava, that's our district. It's a massive geographical...
Isn't it pretty much the largest district in the state?
It is, yes. We have the most lane miles of any district and certainly the biggest geographical area. And so, when you consider where that salt comes from, and you're taking it over in some of those western counties that don't have ready access to a lot of rail hubs or the river, the salt price goes up even more. So we generally pay a little bit more for those western counties and western sheds than we do the ones along the river. But on average, we're paying about $80 a ton. Right now, we going in to the winter statewide, we've got 220,000 tons of salt.
That sounds like a lot.
It is. It is a lot. It's more than what we had going into the winter last year.
Oh, good. Okay.
I guess gun shy or a little scared or, I don't know how you want to say it.
You're just doing the Boy Scout thing. Be prepared.
Well,
for whatever comes along.
Necessity breeds invention,
Yeah.
And so last year, we were getting pretty tight. We were almost close to the point where we were instructing our drivers to go through McDonald's and grab the salt packets, because we were getting pretty low last year. And so we were trying, you learn to stretch stuff.
Sure,
you learn to, we were using a little more salt brine on our abrasives where, when we would send our trucks out, normally we would just put some rock salt in there. And we learned that, hey, you can make that salt brine that stretches that salt out even more. You put that on your abrasives and spread that out and you get a good effect. And we used a lot of flake calcium. And we used a lot of liquid calcium last year, which is an alternate to using salt. We learned that abrasives, we were getting pretty inventive on using all different kinds of abrasives. We were using, from over here along the river, we have a lot of those coal-fired power plants, so we can use a lot of the cinders and stuff from the power plants, and they work really well. Sometimes they're dirty, and people don't like that part.
Well,
but we get the cinders,
works.
Free. So that's a good. You can't hardly argue with that.
That's awesome.
Up north, we have a lot of quarries, and when you have a quarry, they'll have a rock crusher, and they'll try to grade their rocks down to whatever size they need it. Well, when they do that, they have a lot of chips that are developed that are kind of a waste product for them. So we use around the quarries up north, we use a lot of those chips as abrasives, and they seem to work pretty good. And even out west, of course, you got a lot of sawmills and stuff over there. And so we were even using some sawdust, spreading that out on the road just to create a little more abrasiveness and keep people from sliding around as much.
Get some traction.
Get a little traction. So, we're going to approach this winter like we have the last several. Our majors are going to be the focus. That's where the most of the people are driving, and so that's where we think we get the best bang for the buck. If you live out on a rural 2-lane road, you may not see us for a while. That's just kind of the name of the game. We're going to try to hit and get those roads that a lot of people are using in good shape before we ever touch those back roads. So,
granted, I live on a gravel road, so I can understand the frustration with that, but it only makes sense.
Right.
I mean, we as taxpayers, we're requiring you to get us as much bang for the buck as you can.
Yep.
Well, that's how you do it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how you do it. You hit those heavily populated areas with the heavily used roads, and then us other folks will just have to deal with it.
It was kind of funny last year because, and this seems odd, and every uniquely depending on what the weather forecast is. But it's strange. But if you look back and you kind of remember, usually when we have these large winter events, the weather will get cold, the precipitation will come down, and then usually the next day the sun comes out and it gets up above freezing. Well, that is ideal for us. If we can get that sun shining on the pavement and get a few cars driving on it, and that stuff starts to break apart, and we can really make hay while the sun is shining. I mean, that's when your snow plows really do a lot of good. That didn't happen last winter.
It sure didn't, did it?
Last winter, it came the precipitation, and then it seemed like the next day it got colder. And
it got cold and stayed cold for a while.
Well, that salt, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is freezing, and it'll work down, to about 22. If you get down below 22, there's really not a whole lot that we can do. I mean, we can run the plows across it. We can kind of move some stuff around, but there's not much melting going on when it gets down to 20 degrees, So just be aware of that. That's going to happen too. The thing, and I know we've talked about this before, but anytime people see the first flurry of snow, it's like they go completely crazy. And
rush to the grocery store,
all the bread,
buy up everything.
And all the milk is gone, and it's like, it's just people just go nuts, and that's not needed. It'll be okay. There's some Campbell soup in your cupboard, I'm sure, and
something you could survive on for a little bit if you need to.
Just be careful with that. Our trucks, they're huge. We do that for efficiency. We can cover more. We can cover more road that way.
Sure.
We've got this thing that we use on our 4-lane divided highways called a tow plow, and it is a monstrosity beyond all recognition. It's a 10-wheeler that's got a snow plow on the front of the 10-wheeler, and then some of them have belly plows on the bottom of the 10-wheeler, and then we're pulling this trailer that's got a lot of salt and abrasives and stuff in it, and it's got a plow, and it kind of comes across and goes along the side of the 10-wheeler, and
wow.
I mean, it is
I'd like to see one of these setups. Huge. I don't think I've ever seen this.
And the idea behind it is, that one operator can cover 2 lanes of traffic at one time. The fuel efficiency on those things are abysmal, but you're covering 2 lanes of traffic with one operator at one time. Don't try to get fancy and do like a NASCAR or pass him on the left. I mean, don't, just let him do his job and stay back, and it'll all be over. You'll get to little Johnny's soccer game or wherever you're going. You probably won't be playing soccer if it's snowing out.
Right. Maybe not.
You'll get to wherever you're going in plenty of time. But all of our trucks maintain some distance, but especially that tow plow. Just that's one guy, and he's got a lot going on, and he doesn't need to worry about you trying to get in behind him and do an Evel Knievel thing with him.
Do y'all use that setup here?
We do, yeah. Poplar Bluff's got one. We use it a lot on the interstates because that's a lot of area to cover, and they're generally pretty long, straight stretches of road. And but yeah, Poplar Bluff's got one. We use it on 60 and 67.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah,
one.
You ought to go out to the shed sometime and look at it.
Two lanes at one time.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It is something that we, it's not the cure-all. I mean, we know there are some weaknesses to the tow plow. If you have some ice, it doesn't have a whole lot of down pressure. So
none of the plows do all that great on ice, though, do they? That's what I was thinking.
The belly plows on some of the 10-wheelers have a little more down pressure, and you can kind of break that ice loose. But the tow plow, I mean, that's what it does. I mean, it covers a lot of ground for us. Let's, we have slimmed down as an organization, and we're doing the same job that we have always done with a lot fewer people. So, you have to come up with ways to make that more efficient, and that's one of the tools that we're using. But, like I said, going into this winter, we've got a little more salt. On average, if you look at all the winters over the last 10 years or so, we use about 180,000 tons of salt as an organization in one winter. We've got 220 going into the winter. We've got some refill contracts set up with some of our other suppliers so that if we do get into a major event, we've got some contracts in place to refill those supplies if we need. One of the things that we found is that those refill contracts are hard to come by because, like last year, you had all of these folks that are, all scrambling to buy
at the same
time.
Because when you get a big system come through the state,
that's right.
We're not the only ones needing it then.
Yep. We've got, one of the other things that we did this year that's, we hope to get dividends from is in the past we have really depended on seasonal help to help us out,
right.
during the winter when
I
we
remember
have to
us
have
talking about
all
that last
hands
year.
on deck.
Yeah.
And that has worked out, and those folks do a good job, but they're not as efficient as the folks that are working there every day.
Right.
If you work there every day, that, hey, this truck, you gotta watch it shifting into third, or hey, this front end loader, tends to be a little cold natured. I mean, those little things that that get the job done. You have to have some experience with that stuff on a daily basis before you get it, before you know what to do.
Sure, that makes sense.
One of the things that we have done in our district is we have recently hired several maintenance employees. Now, with every organization, you always have, your quota of employees that you feel comfortable with, we're a little bit above that right now going into winter operations. So we've done that on purpose because we knew that we were going to need some extra help. We know that those guys are going to be, up to par and fully versed in what needs to happen. And so we probably won't hire as many of the seasonal type employees just for the winter type events because we're already going to be a little above average going into the season. And so we hope that's good. We'll just have to wait and see. That's something we haven't done in the past. So we've got in our district 568 employees and 273 pieces of equipment that's ready to work 24 hours a day if we need them to. We've got lots of different tools that we use. We're constantly, and it's funny because if you talk to the maintenance employees, they've all got their own weather website. There's hundreds of websites that predict weather,
sure.
And all of them have their favorites. They've got one that they really like called weatherunderground.com, and you go to the and it always kind of makes me feel like I'm a spy or something. Weather Underground, and then of course the Weather Channel. We the KFS 12 is good, and all those different weather apps. We're looking at them constantly. We have a weather service through Meridian that morning and afternoon they send us a weather forecast for our district, and it's catered for our district. And so that is very important to us, and we take that very seriously. We've got ways that we provide information out to the public. We've talked about that mobile app that you can use on your smartphone. That traveler information map, you can get it, you can look at our district, you can see, work zones is one thing, but it also shows, weather coming in. So encourage people to use that because that's what we're looking at too. So never know what's going to happen. Hope for the best. Hope the willy worms, dyed their hair wrong, I guess. I don't know, or maybe the persimmons are growing wrong. I don't know. I don't know about the wasps building their nests up high in the tree.
Yeah, I've never heard that one before.
And we've got one shed up at Silva. They counted the foggy days in August, and they've got it listed up on the board. And, you just never know.
So did they tell you whether they're predicting a rough winter or a mild winter?
Most all of them, of course, they're worried, because they worked so hard last winter. So they're all tending to be pretty conservative. But
that's funny.
They're saying to be prepared for the worst, and we hope that we have. I guess that's the Boy Scouts in us or something. We always want to be prepared.
Absolutely. Funny. Well, I tell you, you mentioned the MoDOT app, and that is such a helpful tool if you do any kind of traveling at all. through the state, even during flood season, because it's going to let you know what roads are closed and such. But you are also, MoDOT's kind of got that social presence these days on Facebook and that kind of thing. You can like the Facebook page for your individual district. And I've noticed things coming up when, roads are closed or something's going on. It always lets me know about it. So that's pretty handy, too.
We've got some really, really smart folks that kind of take care of that. I mean, I've got my own Facebook account, and I don't, I've got pictures of my jack-o'-lanterns that I carved last year. I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what those things can do. And it just amazes me when you talk to people that really know how it works, because we've got a lady over there, Marissa Roby, and then she's recently been married. Her last name's Robertson now, but Marissa Robertson. She's really good at that stuff, and she she talks about how you can use Facebook to target individual areas, and then they provide these analytics. They provide feedback on hey, you got this many people looked at it, this many people clicked on it, and so we certainly for the quick information update, it's great.
Yeah.
What we have recently begun doing, and it's just kind of a changing of the times, I think. But, when I first started at the highway department, whenever we were going to do a project like a bridge replacement, okay, we would always, we all work in squads over there. So you can imagine about 7 or 8 people. And, you'd say, okay, we're going to have this bridge project. So we got to have a public meeting. So all 8 people would work on these. We would print out these displays, which is basically like a picture, which we used to have to take with an airplane. Now you can just go onto Google Earth, and that's
isn't that amazing?
I mean, that's changed everything that we do. But we would print out a photo, and then you'd have to mount it on foam board, and then you would have to, take this colored tape, like pinstriping tape, and you would have somebody to mark that out, this is the alignment of the road, and this is where a bypass would be, or this is where the new right-of-way would be. And sometimes you would have plastic laminate that would go over it so you could see the before and the after picture. I mean, this stuff would take months to get ready, and then you would have your public meeting, and so you would find the local newspapers, and you would put that in there, and then you would
announcing you're having a meeting. And
exactly,
all that. Yeah,
and you would try to go out. And we've done this before, where we would go out and try to hit up the coffee shops, and we would hand out these flyers and go to the post office, and we would do all of that work. Then to come to the night of the public meeting, of course, all 8 people are on overtime, and you go to the the local school or church or whatever, and you'd have this public meeting, and it'd be one guy, and he was lost. He was looking for a card game, and he would show up to your public meeting. And so you look back at that, and you think how much time and effort and you're just not really,
and money invested
money.
In just preparing for it,
and you're just not you're not communicating what you're wanting.
Right.
And so we have recently kind of taken a step back and looked at that and said, are we really doing what we need to be doing? And so one of the things that we have started doing is putting all of our public meetings, we're still having what they call online public meetings, which is kind of new as well, but you can go to our website and you can see about our upcoming projects, and it'll have those pictures and all that information will be right there. And then on the Facebook and Twitter, we'll kind of target a certain area, and we'll try to communicate with them what's going on. And then we're going to update all of our newspaper, television, radio contacts, and make sure, because that was another thing that we noticed is that for some of our newspapers, our email addresses were Pam at suchandsuch.com. And Pam may have retired 10 years ago. So, we didn't know that, so we're still sending it to Pam at so-and-so. And so, I think it works great when those companies like that have a general email address, and so whoever's got that job gets it. It's not sent, so we're trying to do things a little bit better and trying to refine that. But certainly our the most bang for our buck that we are seeing is through our social media, and I think that's kind of a changing of the times. I think that's where people get their information a lot. I get a subscription to our local newspaper there at Dexter, and I like it. I think it's great to see the pictures and everything, but honestly, in 10 minutes I'm done with it, and it's it does a good job of starting my fire, but but a lot of my information comes from my phone. I see myself, I look on there and I find out who's got Ebola today, and who's what stupid stuff so and so's done, and I even see what Kim Kardashian's wearing yesterday. I mean, that's where all your information comes from.
Sure, yeah.
So that's one of the things that we're trying to adapt, and we're trying to catch up to the times, I guess. And certainly we want to do the best at communicating that we possibly can. So, if you're not a Facebook user, if you're not a Twitter user, if you're not, whatever, we've still got our phone. And I've said this before too, I think we are the only state agency that still has a phone number that when you call, a human answers, and I'm so proud of that. I think that's great. So 1-888-ASK-MoDOT, and you just dial that, and we'll get you the information that you need. But if you can and you want to, then our Facebook account is facebook.com/MoDOT Southeast. Our Twitter account is the same, twitter.com/MoDOT Southeast. We post all kinds of stuff on there. We've got, job openings, all of our public meeting special events. We've got some realty stuff that we do. Occasionally we'll have pieces of ground that, may have been purchased as a remnant or something with a project, and so we don't need it. It's not something that we want to keep, and so we'll put those realty listings on there, and all the travel conditions are listed on there as well. So pretty neat.
It is pretty neat, and like I say, I've noticed on my feed, my news feed, a road closing coming up that I didn't really even think to check on. Because I mean, you guys are constantly working, and you jump around from project to project to project, so it's kind of hard for us laymen to keep up with it. But yeah, that's a great way to do it. Yeah. Is with the Facebook page,
and it's there's always our planned work. If all we had to do was our planned work, we would be great. We would be outstanding. But inevitably, what occurs is you do a really good job of planning, and you learn by like Monday at 8 o'clock that's all gone to heck in a handbasket, and you've got to do some things in an emergency type situation. And so, that quick, immediate information is sometimes the best that we've got. And so that's where your social media sites are really invaluable, is that quick, immediate, influx of information. But we do our best. We do try to plan things out as best we can, but the inevitable happens.
Absolutely. And again, another thing that happens this time of year, and I've noticed, I had to go over to Dexter a couple of days ago, one of the flashing signs on the side of the road that said, "Watch out for farm equipment." And I was like, this is the time of year when we're going to see all the harvesting going on, and you're going to see these loaded trucks. Yeah. You're going to see these huge pieces of agricultural equipment traveling the highways. And I always think of that Craig Morgan song, "International Harvester," because he's talking about quit honking at me that way.
You don't
He's just trying to do his job, you know.
Don't think of the one about your tractor. She thinks my tractor.
Well, not so much, because International Harvester is actually about him being on the roadway. That's what the song's about. So that really gets me. But it's a cute song. But it's this time of year, and people get so frustrated when they get behind a big piece of equipment, and especially on a 2-lane where they can't really get around very easily, and all that. But guys, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be eating.
Southeast Missouri. I
like food, man. I'm going to tolerate the farmers.
The bulk of Southeast Missouri, anyway, and really, Butler County, and including Butler County and East, agriculture is the number one industry in our area. Yeah. It is what makes it is what allows us to do what we need to do.
Exactly.
And, that's just part of the
And how else are they going to get around?
Exactly.
What else are they going to do?
Yeah.
They have to use the road sometime.
Everybody tries to get more efficient. And, one of the things that farmers, the only thing that they can do to be more efficient, because you've got to have the acreage. And so you can either get bigger or you can get faster. Right. And they've been trying to do both. And, of course, Butler County is one of the big counties for raising rice, and Stoddard County is too, which is over where I'm from. And there are some of those rice combines, the Caterpillar combines. They're absolutely massive.
Yeah,
I mean, those machines are so large. It would scare me to death to drive one of them, because they're so high up in the air.
Yeah, I can't even fathom trying to get around with one of those.
They're amazing. My family grows some cotton, and of course those cotton pickers have gotten they've grown by leaps and bounds, and they do so much stuff. And it's like a space shuttle in there. They've got lights for everything and TV monitors, and there's just a lot going on. So again, they don't really need to worry about Speed Racer, zooming in and around and doing all that stuff. They have a tough job. A lot of times they're driving across bridges that were built in the 30s for, Model A's and Model T's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They've got a tough job to worry about without worrying about somebody just pestering them, and anyway, I think people know that, harvest equipment's going to be slow, it's going to be big, just pay a little extra attention. A lot of people have asked me, because we put those changeable message boards up like you're talking about, and they say, be prepared for, harvest season or something like that, and they're like, well, why'd you put them up out there? Because that's not where they're at. They're out on Route A and Route V and Route M. And
they're not the ones the message is for.
There's two reasons for that. One, Route 60 has a lot better shoulders, and so we can put those boards up and they won't really be in the way.
Sure.
So that's the number one reason. And the number two reason is because you're exactly right. That message is not for the farmers. It's for the people that are not used to driving around that equipment.
Right.
The farmers know, how to drive their equipment. That being said, a lot of their equipment's only used this time of year.
Right.
So it's not the most high-performance equipment that you can have. Sometimes you kind of have to understand the limitations of what they're working with, and so that's always kind of entertaining. Some of my neighbors have some equipment that well, let's just say it could probably be maintained a little bit better than what it is, because there's stuff falling off of it all the time, and there's black smoke rolling out of it, and it's kind of got a mind of its own a lot of times. But those trucks, they're only used for a month and a half, 2 months out of the year.
Right.
But certainly, you can go to you can drive by the new Lansing elevator over there at Morehouse and Gray Ridge. You look at those piles of corn. That round pile is 1 million bushels of corn. And then the oblong one, I think, is 1.5 million or 2 million bushels of corn. And then over at, closer to Fisk, they've got one over there that I think that's supposed to be like 2 million bushels of corn. This area is amazing. They grow just about anything here. They produce all that stuff that feeds so many different people, and so many, it's really amazing to live in this area. You just have to understand that there's some limitations of the equipment that's being used, and just beware and be cautious and be safe.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Honestly, zipping around that piece of equipment is not going to get you there that much quicker, really.
No, it's an amazing time to watch that stuff work. Like I said, we grow some cotton, and I've seen it for several years, and it's still just really neat just to watch them go through and pick the cotton and process it, and it's just neat. It's just really pretty cool, and just step back and enjoy it and quit worrying so much.
There you go. Sounds like good advice to me. Sure does. One of the things that we had a news story this morning about the farm equipment and the trucks and stuff, and I can't remember how it was exactly worded. Basically, it was saying that the farmers had pre-approval, pre-permission to overload a little bit this time of year. Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of a traditional thing this time of year, or is that something that they only do once in a while? I remember seeing that before.
We usually see it this time of year. Certainly there is a trade-off there. I mean, the more weight that you use on your vehicles, the more damage it does to the roads, more damage it does to the bridges. But you also cut down on the number of trips that they have to make. Certainly we've talked about how agriculture is the number one industry in this area. So it is something that's seasonal. We see it very often. And like I said, it's just a way, it's a balancing act. I mean, you really have to weigh the benefits. They're cutting down on their amount of fuel that they use.
Right. If
they're not out on the road as much, that cuts down on their exposure to other vehicles a little bit. It's just one of those things that it's a trade-off, and we know it's coming, and we'll just have to plan for it. And
is that kind of an every year thing?
It has been more prevalent in the last 5 or 6 years than it
I knew I had remembered reading about that before.
It used to when there were bad years. That was when you would see it. If there were droughts, then you would see it opening up, and in a lot of cases that came from hauling hay, because folks were having to go a lot further to haul hay, and so they were trying to, that's a direct expense for them, but right now the cattle market's actually doing really, really well, and so if you're a cattle farmer, you're sitting pretty good right now. So I think this is more of just a way to cut down on the exposure and cut down on the number of trips that have to be made. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's really become more prevalent in the last 5 or 6 years. Certainly the farmers like it, and that's fine, and we'll just kind of have to deal with it as we need to. There's a lot of those bridges, especially on the county system, that are load limited, and there's several on a state system too. And we've talked about that down at Campbell. We've got a bridge that's broke down there, and it's shut down, and we don't, we couldn't risk having those heavy loads go across that. Those bridges that are load posted are nearing the end of their useful life, so we don't want to run the risk of breaking any of those as well. So pay attention to the signs that are listed, and just beware of those. But
so the permission to be overloaded on the road doesn't necessarily translate to permission to be overloaded on the bridge.
That's exactly correct. If they
you can do a little damage to a road, and everybody's still going to be safe.
Yeah.
Do that on a bridge, and not the case.
Yeah, we'll have to close the bridge. Yeah. I mean, a lot of those load limitations, we've got several bridges that'll say, loads over 25 tons, 15 miles an hour on the bridge. Now, the reason why we do that is twofold. One, the bridge is getting to a point where having a heavy load going across it is not good. So if you slow down and that truck moves across that bridge, it's not getting any dynamic loading. In other words, the truck isn't slamming down onto the bridge very much. So you slow down, and it just gets the rolling load across it. The other thing that does is it spreads that load out, because you might have one span where the front wheels are on it, and then as it gets off that span, it may go to the next one, and so then the wheels on the back part of the truck are loading that part of the bridge. If you move across it really fast, that loading has a tendency to kind of move as one unit instead of being several spread out point loads.
Right.
And so that's where the logic behind that comes from. I am not naive, and I know that a lot of trucks don't slow down a bit when they go across them. That's not good. I mean, there's a reason why those signs are there. It's to try to get as much useful life out of those structures as we can. And, not doing what the sign has listed is only going to increase the speed at which those structures get taken out of service. And when you don't have any money to replace them, that puts you in a very bad shape. So just beware that, try to respect the structure that you're driving on, because it may not be available if you tear it up.
Is it a crime to exceed those posted?
You can be ticketed for it, but the law enforcement agency would have to be right there and watch it, so it's something that we basically, trust that the folks using the bridge understand the benefit in slowing down, and try to educate them on, we do this for your own benefit, because you're using the bridge, and if you tear it up, then we can't, guarantee that bridge is going to be open. So
right, and then what are you going to do to get your crops where you need to get with them?
Exactly.
At that point. And I was kind of thinking if there was a liability issue on that, if somebody exceeded that posted limit, weight limit or speed limit, and cause damage to the bridge, would they be liable for that? Is there any way to actually get them to pay for that instead of the state and the taxpayers?
It would be if they tear it up maliciously, and I mean, yes, if there's a way that we can find, because we've had folks where they've run into our signal posts and signal lights, and they'll be in an accident there, and yes, they have to pay to fix that. That gets issued a K number is what we call it, and it goes to their insurance, and then they are liable to replace that, and that gets billed out back, and then that gets put up, and
that's not cheap either.
No.
Get one of those posts.
Any damage to our infrastructure that can be proven that's what happened, and yes, that's what we do.
Okay.
If the law enforcement folks come out there and they determine that yes, this is what happened, then certainly we have ways to recoup that money, and we most definitely try to do that. But the bad thing about a lot of the bridges is, that damage is done and it may not show up for a while, and
that's true.
That's the bad part of that, but we do the best we can.
Wow, I don't even think about what could happen. Oh man, I don't even think of. My mind's kind of racing there. Not cool. How about the state freight plan? That's something that's kind of in MoDOT's headlines these days.
Missouri is situated right in the center of the country. We have a very robust freight presence nationwide. And when I say freight, that's semi-trucks, over-the-road trucks, big part of that. Trains and rail, huge part of that. And, of course, river, barge traffic, huge part of that. Kansas City and St. Louis are the number 2 and number 3 rail hubs in the entire country. So if you look at the tonnage coming through St. Louis and Kansas City, only one other place, and I know you're probably going to ask me that, and I think it's San Francisco, but I'm not positive. But I know we're the number 2 and number 3 rail hubs. What we have been looking at, and something that we, are kind of concerned with, is where's the future of freight going to be? What is the trend that is going for freight?
Well, until they can develop the hovercraft.
Well, Amazon's
to be
trying to do that with those, those unmanned,
with the little drones.
You can't say drone; it's unmanned aerial vehicles.
Oh, excuse me.
Drones, that's not supposed to say drone. They're trying to use those in agriculture
it's
too.
It's a drone. Come on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they're really cool.
Yeah, they are cool, and boy, think about how quick they could make a delivery to you.
Yeah. I
without having to get on the road or the rail or the river. Man,
I heard a thing on the internet where this is totally off subject. I don't even know where I'm going with this.
That's okay.
In Minnesota, they do a lot of ice fishing. And, if you've ever seen, I've never been up there. I always thought it would be cool, but, basically they have these little huts.
Built right on
the ice. And, you get these, and there's not a whole lot to do in Minnesota in the wintertime. So,
I would imagine not.
It's a pretty cool place during the summer. I got a friend, his daughter's going to school up there in Minneapolis, and she says it's great, but now this will be our first winter, and I've got a feeling that the luster may go off a little bit.
May change a little.
But, there's a lot of that. They just do that ice fishing, and they get these little bitty huts out there, and they, they sit down and they do their ice fishing. Well, this company had this idea of, you could get on your cell phone and call to them, and they could run you a 12-pack of beer out with this drone. They would just hook it on there and take it out there to
hilarious.
The ice hut and drop it off. I was like, well, they'd never leave, they'd just be there.
And think about it, they don't have to refrigerate it or anything.
Yeah, it's
That's funny.
Not advocating
They'll
that
probably
at
make
all,
some bucks doing that too.
But certainly
how funny.
How things get moved from one place to another is always changing. And, the Panama Canal is being reconstructed. And when it gets completely done, if you know anything about, ocean-going vessels, there are different sizes of ocean-going vessels, and the Panama Canal's 100 years old, and so when it was built for a smaller vessel than what the super tankers are.
Right.
So the super tankers that we get so much of our stuff from China, and a lot of that comes across on these big super tankers. Well, they have two options. They can either go to the East Coast or to the West Coast. And so, for such a majority of our stuff, it comes in from the East Coast or the West Coast like a spider web, and you kind of meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
When Panama Canal gets done, we don't know, but there's the potential that the Midwest, that spider web won't have to do that anymore. They could come through, and they could come up the river. They could come up from Texas. That whole idea of getting freight across our country may change significantly. We don't really know, but we're trying to figure out and be prepared for it. And so that's where this whole idea about the freight plan, we're trying to talk with stakeholders and try to give them the opportunity to comment on it. Again, we're trying to meet, current and future needs of Missouri businesses and how they are affected by freight and how their economic development and growth depends on that. The plan is available online, www.mofreightplan.org. It gives you the opportunity to complete a short survey and provide comments for that. And if you have a group and would like to request a speaker, there is a fellow that's kind of heading that up, and his email address is chsmith@burnsmcd.com. Burns McDonald is kind of the consultant that's kind of handling that whole statewide freight plan.
Okay.
And it's going to be available for public comment until the end of October. I know that the Regional Planning Commission here in Poplar Bluff is going to have a speaker for their next TAC meeting. And so Andrew Murphy over at the Regional Planning Commission can probably give people a little more information on that if you're interested. But that's really what it comes from. Just trying to,
well, that makes sense.
See what industries are here, what they're wanting to do, and how we can best be prepared for that.
And that will benefit Missouri. That'll be bringing in some new business.
You bet.
That's
I heard
awesome.
Amazon actually on the radio this morning. They are hiring 80,000 temporary workers for Christmas.
80,000
temporary employees for Christmas. And I know, like UPS and FedEx, they hire several for the Christmas rush. I mean, getting stuff.
80,000. I mean, that's like Poplar Bluff and Dexter and Bloomfield, and we could put a whole bunch of our towns to work. Everybody in the whole town.
I mean,
that's amazing.
Getting stuff from one place to another is huge in the United States.
It is.
I mean, that's it. Just the whole Amazon thing just amazes me.
I know. Me too.
I'm just really wowed that somebody could figure that whole thing out. And But anyway, that's...
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, we've just got a couple of minutes left, but real quick, if you could kind of bring us up to date on our construction sites and such.
One of the big things that is still ongoing and will be ongoing for quite some time is down at Campbell, the bridge there on Route 53. Route 53 and Route 62 run concurrently. It goes over the railroad track there by the Sugar Shack and Bansel's grocery store, and that bridge is closed, and it's going to remain closed for up to August of 2015. We've got to. You know, a lot of times when we close roads to replace them, we've already got all the design work, the permits, the agreements, all that stuff's kind of done already.
Right.
Well, when that happened down there, we were caught very much unawares. And so we've got a design company that is turning around the plans. They should have them to us in the next few weeks. We'll get them reviewed. We're planning on having a bid letting in January. We've still got to work on our agreements with the railroad. I mean, all that stuff that's usually already kind of taken care of.
Still has to be done.
Still has to be done.
Yeah.
And so it's just sitting there, and I know people are probably wondering, well, how come you're not in there replacing that thing? Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that,
right.
and we're doing it. It's just you can't see it out there on the ground. So that's a big deal for us. 67, the 4 lanes south of Poplar Bluff here. It's done. We're waiting on some grass to grow. We've still got a little bit of guardrail work that's got to be done there. But Robertson Contractors here in Poplar Bluff's doing that and doing good. Over at Stoddard County at Dexter, we just got through building a sidewalk there on Business 60 and got it all done. And I saw some folks using it the other night, and that's great because that's one of those areas, and talked about it before, where, you know, it amazes me people put on their black sweatpants and black sweatshirt and go out and start walking at night. And in that location, we didn't have any sidewalk at all.
Right.
And I personally have almost hit somebody there on that hill. And so I'm very glad to see we've got a sidewalk there now, and they can get over there and go up and down on that. And that's great. The 160 project down between the interchange and Doniphan, still doing some utility relocations down there, working on some water lines and power lines, and there's stuff going on, but they're not really out on the road yet, so that's not impacting people quite as much. 114 over in Stoddard County, they're diamond grinding that pavement. That's the oldest exposed concrete pavement in the state of Missouri. That work is going exceedingly slow, but they're getting it done. I mean, that stuff is very, very hard, and they're working on it though. And we've got a contract where we're doing some signing and upgrading some intersections, and that's where I've got to go today. I've got to go to the big community of Arab, Missouri. Looks like Arab, but, you know, in Missouri, everything's pronounced a little odd. So we're going to Arab and talk about an intersection up there and try to get that worked out. So
excellent.
We've got one quick thing. We still have some work zones, and we still have that ability to let folks fill out a work zone survey and tell us how we're doing, and we always encourage folks to do that. You can go onto our website, look for the work zone survey, tell us what we're doing, tell what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong, so we can do better.
Absolutely. Dave, thank you so much,
Thanks
as usual, for coming in, and boy, lots of information today. Sure appreciate you.
No problem.
That's it for Brittney on the Bluff for today. Stick around. CBS News up next on Today's Talk, KWOC 930 AM and 93.3 FM.
Informative, entertaining, and free. Today's Talk.